Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to On Your Mental. This is the podcast that shares candid, open, and sometimes vulnerable conversations between and about men. Today's episode, we're talking about shrooms. As you can tell by the title, we are going to be sharing our own experience having tried things like shrooms. Meghan and Aivan, who are guests today, are going to talk a little bit about their experience with microdosing with these kinds of substances. But the reason why we want to talk about this is not to promote this. This isn't to say go and do these things. This is to say if this is something that you've been interested in or curious about. You might be seeing this a lot in media these days. And that's because it's something that is a bit of a hot topic, is microdosing. We hope you'll enjoy this week's episode. And before we start, I want to let you all know that this is our first sponsored episode. This isn't a paid sponsorship, but we've got some goods here from fungalfriend.com. They have a lot of good information on their website. They talk about microdosing. They talk about the use of these substances in general. So if you're curious about this is actually a great place to start. And hopefully in our conversations today, your curiosity is kind of satisfied. And we'll see you in a minute when the episode starts. Peace. Welcome back, Megan. Welcome back, Aivan, to the podcast.
Sure.
Thanks for... Oh, you New Zealand now? You New Zealand? Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate you all making the time. And also to come in and talk about, I think, an interesting topic today. Today we're going to be talking about psychedelics. Yeah. Shrooms, acid, maybe not so much acid, ayahuasca. That kind of stuff is very interesting.
What is ayahuasca?
Isn't that like DMT?
It's a plant. It's derived from a plant, I think. I don't know. Don't ask me.
But we're going to be talking about like plant medicine.
Yeah.
In a way. The reason why I wanted to talk about this was the episode is going to be coming out on April 18th. And originally I was thinking like, oh, that's close to 420. I'll talk about like weed, blah, blah, blah. But then I remembered that we had tried before filming a weed episode and it didn't work. We did it while we were after smoking. Yeah.
Who was on it?
Just me and Cabs. Like,
did you see it? Did it tank?
It was just hard. It was. I didn't post it.
It was too chill. I feel like maybe
it was lost.
Yeah,
it was very hard to stay focused.
But apparently 420 is all about microdosing. Like it's all about shrooms.
Is that what
now.
it is now?
Yeah.
So yeah, I saw them post that on April 1st. But it was a prank because it was on April 1st.
But weed's legal now, so it's
weed's legal now.
That's the next thing.
What's the next thing?
I appreciate you bringing that up, Megan, because that's kind of like one of the angles I wanted to. Nice job. That's one of the things I wanted to draw attention
10 points
to.
for Hufflepuff.
When weed wasn't legal, there were still a bunch of dispensaries where we are here in Vancouver, right? I think plenty of places in Canada in general had dispensaries up everywhere, and that was before it was actually legal technically.
Yeah.
But like you could go into any of these dispensaries, fill out their little form, and you walk away with weed. Right?
Yeah, that was like for like medicinal purposes.
For medicinal purposes, but you could still buy it recreationally. Medicinal purposes.
I remember filling out one of those forms and like having to search what disease I had.
Yeah. That legit, and you just make something up, and then they would give it to you still.
Yeah, but that was way back then. I don't do that anymore.
Back then, that's how it was with marijuana, and now we're starting to see similar trends like that around things like shrooms, which is what we're going to be talking about today. There are, I think, at least 4 dispensaries that are open in Vancouver alone for shrooms that are stores that operate and they sell it, but it's not entirely legal. So it's kind of, it's not. But yet. You can be prescribed psilocybin, the active psychedelic component in shrooms. You can be prescribed that by some doctors for medicine, because that's the other component to it too. Is we're starting to see some research point to these helping with some mental health disorders, things like PTSD, anxiety, depression. Those can start to be treated with this. And I think that's a very interesting thing. And we'll talk about that a little bit at the end of today. But we're going to start our conversation talking about our own experience with some of these things. And so I appreciate y'all being willing to talk about this stuff, since it's not entirely mainstream yet, but everybody's talking about it. That's the thing.
It's frowned upon.
That's exactly what it feels like. That's like masturbating on an airplane.
Not the same.
It's a Hangover reference. Anyways, now. Yeah.
This is something you did.
Before we get started with our topic, I'd like to share, this is fun for us here on Your Mental. This is our first sponsored episode.
Oh yeah.
And sponsored episode.
Derek.
So you'll notice on the table in front of us here, to the side of Kabir, we've got these packages next to us. And these are from a brand called Fungal Friend. I'll share a very brief story about how I came to know about Fungal Friend. I had been looking for shrooms to use and buy recreationally with me and my partner on a trip for my birthday. And we were asking our friends, and one of them recommended these people, a friend of theirs. And I tried it, and I enjoyed their product. I like the information they provide online. I like the packaging. It looks all nice and pretty.
The packaging is dope.
Mm-hmm.
The packaging is real dope.
Really
Yeah.
Very clean look to it.
That's
and
key.
they provide a lot of information. They also don't say, like, just take this. They encourage you to do your research first. And that's what I want to say here at this point in the podcast before we say anything about what we're doing here. This is not to say go and do shrooms, go and try psychoactive substances, go have a fun trip. That's not the point of this. This is just to share our own experience with it and just comment on the fact that things are becoming mainstream. But if you're interested, people here in Canada, because this is a Canada-only company, Fungal Friend, if you're interested, go ahead and check out their website. They have a lot of good info on there. They will ship, deliver, etc. But they've been kind enough to give us some free goods here, and that way you two can take some home. Kabir can take some home too, and I'll keep
Sick.
some here.
Nice.
Shoddy shine.
There you go. Dude, that's the one that I tried, and it was actually really, really good.
Oh, nice.
About half a pack each.
What
It
was the
fun.
procedure? Did you have to like fill out something again?
No, it's a lot more straightforward. This is the thing too, right? Is it's you don't seem to have to go through those kind of hoops with shrooms these days. It seems very readily accessible. There's a lot of brands out there that are doing things similar to this. Fungal Friend is one of many, but I just like them. But it's straightforward. You just fill in your name, shipping address, they'll ship you a package, right? You just have to be over 19 to be ordering that. Yeah.
Wonder why what
It's
is.
just a gray area.
Like
right
big
now.
difference
Mhm.
between like when marijuana was like being sold, and then in compared to shrooms.
Well, I feel like marijuana may have been almost like a domino.
Right.
Exactly.
You know.
It opened the door
Yeah.
for shrooms.
For these
It's
other
a
things.
gateway drug.
So thanks. Hey, gateway drug. I appreciate that. Another good segue here.
Hey, yeah.
Hey, we're back.
Doing great.
I wanted to start by asking us, like, why did you first try shrooms? What was your impression of it beforehand? And if you wanted to talk about another one, if you want to talk about like LSD, acid, whatever you want to talk about, go for it. But why did you try it? What did you think of it beforehand? And what do you think of it now? How has that kind of changed for you?
Let Megan go first.
Yeah, I think I first tried it on a friend trip. And
Mm-hmm.
can't remember if it was acid or shrooms. I don't remember.
Started with
I
that.
think I just really made the jump.
Mm.
But I think it was so like there's obviously like I think three main reasons to try shrooms. It's recreationally, to use it as a performance enhancer, whether that be like creativity, productivity, and then for mental health. And I tried it first recreationally just because everyone around me was doing it.
A little peer pressure to get you.
Yeah, a little peer pressure. It also seemed like just the more natural and less aggressive thing to try, I guess.
Like for fun.
For fun, yeah. And
Yeah.
like I feel like it's the side effects that you get, you can really control it with how much you take. It can go from like just being, you know, a bit brighter to like seeing different things. So I think it felt like a safer.
It was very inviting.
Yeah.
See brighter things. I don't remember my first time. Like my first time taking shrooms. I did remember like the whole like idea behind it of like why I thought it was cool. Like everybody was like, oh, you'll go on this like trip and like you'll get to know yourself better. It'll like make you understand the world. I don't know if it was like that my first time.
Yeah,
but
that's what I heard a lot of that too. But,
Yeah.
but same. It didn't feel that type of experience.
Yeah,
it was completely different. Than
Yeah,
that.
I was imagining like a portal. Like so, if you ask, I remember he was talking about his first time, and I actually too. I'm just telling everybody who's done.
If you ask some of our
But like,
friends.
yeah,
dropping.
these guys when they did it, like they were at Third Island Beach or something, and like they said like they had like a profound experience and like got to know themselves better. I don't know if it was like that for me, but I definitely like felt like afterwards it did. I don't know if it was just because I was getting older or like because of my experiences, my perspective of things definitely changed. But I don't know if it was the mushrooms or not, or the acid even.
Or if it was just growing.
If it was just growing,
Maturing.
exactly. If it was from just like life experience. But I definitely think your first time was acid.
Yeah, I think so.
I remember thinking the first time I tried it, it was 6 years ago. It was 2016, so like 20 years old. And it was a group of us cabin, right? It was like, I thought it was hilarious once we did it. I've always been very apprehensive to try new substances, even marijuana. I remember I was on a date with like a girl in high school, and a second date was lined up, but they had asked like before the second date if I wanted to come and hang out and smoke weed, and then I said no because I was like really against it at the time, like didn't want to smoke weed at all, and never had the second date. And it was because I was so against it. Now here I am, like I recreationally smoke weed all the time.
Sponsored.
And now we're talking about shrooms and other stuff, but I've always been very apprehensive to try new things, and I get a little bit of anxiety around doing it.
Right.
And of course there was a part of me that always heard like, oh, what if you have a bad trip? Like that was like the scary thing to me too, is like the whole set and setting rule, right? Where you have to be in the right mindset and in a good setting with the right people and the right environment. Yeah. So I was a little bit worried about it, but after having taken it, like 10 out of 10, I really enjoyed my first experience. We were doing it together the first time I had done it. I don't know if you had tried it before that.
I never did anything.
When was that? Peaches? It was
the seashell trip, 2016. Yeah. But I remember like at the end of the trip, everybody had gone back up to the cabin. Me, Kabir, and another friend Z, we stayed in the water, floating around with our life jackets on. And like everything was just so vibrant. Things were moving around. I felt like I could hear shit further away. It was such a weird experience. And for me, what that did was it made me think that just the things that you see are not the way that they actually are.
Oh, yeah. That's key. That's big.
That was the eye-opening part for me. And that's what I meant when I think I sent you all these questions about like how it changed the way you see the world. To me, it made me feel like I could take a little bit of a step back. Things aren't as serious as they fucking seem. That's the way that I think I looked at it.
Right. You're only focused on what was going on in the moment.
So
what was the environment around you?
Something about flowing in the water, because I remember when we did acid at Sean again, this like hit hard for me, like my perspective. So like, you know how you're saying like it takes you back, like see things bigger, like in a bigger view. At the same time, it also allowed me to see details, which was like nuts. So like, I don't know, like noticing like colors or like, I don't know, even bugs, how like crazy they are, like how their whole life is like little tiny and they're all like a whole world, like I don't know, it's just like the little things.
It is creative in that sense, because you can almost like, you can look at something and see it as something else.
Right.
Not like, it's not like you're hallucinating, but like you can see something as something else. And
you know what it is.
It's almost like poetic in that way.
Yeah. It's like it's like your appreciation becomes like heightened.
Right.
Like for the bigger things and also for the smaller things, because then it puts everything in like perspective on a larger scale and in a smaller scale. So that was for sure probably like the biggest change or biggest like impact that I guess LSD had an effect on me, or mushrooms, the whole.
And they're similar, right? Like you get similar kind of experiences out of these things, right?
The mushrooms,
they are different.
Way more giggles though.
Yeah. That's something that I love about them is like you feel good, right? Like generally speaking, especially if you do surround yourself with good people while you're doing it, right? You have a good time. Prior to having tried it the first time, did you have any negative impression of it? Did you have anything that told you like maybe I shouldn't be doing this? Big time?
Oh
like, what?
It's a drug.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. That was like the whole thing about it. And like coming from a very like closed off family, like my dad is, you know, as you guys know, is a pastor. So like my family is like very like religious, very Christian. So I feel like trying even like alcohol, marijuana. Just reminds me of that Frank Ocean song. Don't do marijuana.
The one where they're in the car. Yeah. You become sluggish, lazy, stupid, and unconcerned.
Exactly, that's all I hear like at that time. Like keeps repeating, but there's just that idea of it. Like it'll make you like, I don't know. The association for it is like just bad. Like it'll make you dumber.
There's a negative connotation around trying any substance, and that's the thing about legality, and that's the funny thing about marijuana. To talk about that for a second. Everybody says such negative things about it. Next thing you know, it's legal and everybody's doing it recreationally like it's nothing. A day can change what that is, right? One day it's illegal, one day it isn't. That's the funny thing about substances, right? Psilocybin and LSD weren't always illegal. They became illegal in like the 60s or something like that after people kept doing experiments with them at Harvard. And then they started to kind of lock down on that and be like, yo, that's like, there's actually some crazy conspiracy theories about it. I'm not going to get into this. I'm going to for people listening, watching, but there are some conspiracy theories around the idea that like having these experiences with psychoactive substances does open your mind a little bit and might make you question authority in a way. right? And you'll look at the lawmakers and the people who are saying that these things are illegal and you should never do these, and question them in general, which is why they might want it to be illegal, because why would they want you questioning them?
Right.
Also, just think about like the antidepressant industry. Like,
Oh
how
my
much
God.
money
Pharmaceutical
they
has a
make.
huge
Yeah.
hand in that. There
Yeah.
has to be.
You're
You got
gonna
the
get
whole,
off.
you got the whole
You're gonna
line
get
of
off
that.
tomorrow.
It's actually just with like everything with medicine. So like I work in the health and fitness, so I'm always surrounded by like all this like stuff. And recently, like the whole like movement on like, I don't know, like finding medicine and like fruits, like herbs and all that
Like
stuff.
naturopathic.
Exactly, it has
remedies.
become more like prominent
Mm-hmm.
because that's exactly that's what our body needs, like these natural things. But that wasn't like promoted back then. Like if ever you were sick, like they'll never tell you like, oh, like have this more of this in your diet and it'll help with your inflammation or whatever it is that you're dealing with. Anytime you like you go to a doctor, they'll just prescribe you something.
Some
'cause that's-
synthetic.
because that's the whole like capitalism like game.
Mm-hmm. And
got
that's,
us.
there is a component to that for sure, right?
Yeah.
Like pharmaceutical industries do want you to purchase their products. Why would you stop when you
Yeah.
can walk and take a plant,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I think that there is some truth to that part of the conspiracy of it all. But I appreciate you bringing up like antidepressants and stuff like that, because in a lot of the articles you will read about microdosing with shrooms, it points to the fact that people will take a daily pill with regular antidepressants that are prescribed by a doctor, whereas they can take this once every 3 days if they're going to continually microdose. That's there was a doctor, let me get the name really quick. There's a doctor that actually says to do the 1 to 3 days or 1 every 3 days. Dr. James Fadiman. And he has this like method where you do it 1 day and then the next 2 days you're off, but you kind of still feel some of the
This is
effects of
mushroom or
microdosing,
like-
microdosing mushrooms. Yeah.
Microdosing mushrooms.
If you could go from doing a daily thing to 1 every 3 days, that's great. But also there's a ton of research actually out there about people doing a single experience or even 1 or 2 experiences with a larger dose to tackle the things that are actually at the root of your anxiety and depression. And then you don't need these things anymore. They also do that with addiction. People will quit smoking after having a single
Really?
experience with a psychedelic. It's insane what it could do, but at the same time, they don't really know what it's doing
Right.
at this point. But it's interesting. I think it's
Do
really
they get
cool.
do they get addicted to the mushrooms then?
No, it's a 1 or 2 time experience. Do you feel like you're addicted to mushrooms
No,
or
not at
acid
all.
after
but
having tried it?
No,
Yeah.
not at all. That's the coolest thing about it. It's
Mhm.
like one of those things that like, oh, the experience was dope. I'll do it again, but you're not like, oh, I gotta do it.
Yeah, you're not
Yeah.
in a rush to get back
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
It was like one of those things like, oh, you did it, it was amazing, and then you
Mhm.
talk about it with your friends. But
Yeah.
that's cool that you said that, because a lot of the times when people like they address anything that they're dealing with, usually it's like it becomes like a replacement.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have like freaking the
They have
patch.
to do
like,
that
they have
daily.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
How is a mushrooms microdose? Like, is it?
So these, to talk about at least these capsules that we got from Fungal Friend, it's just single capsules. And if
Okay.
you choose the Rise pack, which is their microdose,
The dosages or
it's 100
Yeah.
milligrams in there. And a regular full dose is about 2 full grams, right? So 2,000 milligrams.
this many.
So this is about 5% of a regular dose, and the science points to a microdose being 5 to 10%. So this is about 5% in a single capsule, and you just take one, have it after your breakfast, have a full breakfast, skip your coffee,
Yeah.
have one of these, and you'll
Skip
start
the
to
coffee.
skip the coffee,
Skip the
because those
coffee.
kind of components will kind of fight each other, right? When you got too many substances
Skip the
going on,
coffee.
right?
Hell
Caffeine
yeah.
will probably be going nuts in
And
your
when you're
head.
on an empty stomach, you definitely feel it more. Like it.
Yeah, so this allows it when you do it on a full stomach, it allows you to kind of feel it throughout the day a bit more rather than all at once. But yeah, so our opinion beforehand was there's a bit of a stigma around it because it's a substance, right? It's another drug, right? And drug we could get into about just being a whole conspiracy thing itself. Schedule 1, what does it even mean? Who decided what these things are? Blah, blah, blah. How we feel about it now is we've tried it. Do you have any negative outlook on it at this point? Or are you like relatively positively thinking about it? I think about these things pretty positively these days.
Yeah, I think pretty positively as well.
Mhm.
I think it's all just in a person having to also understand like how much you can handle before you have a negative experience,
Mm-hmm.
making sure you understand your surroundings so you're not, ever in just a poor place where you end up having a bad experience and like
yeah.
freaking out or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see where someone could have a negative experience, but I think it's just like really educating yourself as to like how much you should be taking,
Mm-hmm.
who you should be surrounding yourself with. I know even like on some of our group trips, like we're just stuck inside, and like that's when I always feel like a bit claustrophobic.
like to be out.
So like being outdoors and like just understanding like, yeah, like what surrounding you should be in. That helps with like a positive experience.
For sure.
Yeah.
In general, we see it kind of positively. I think that's a good thing. I think it's a cool idea that something that is in nature is not being blocked from people anymore, right?
Yeah.
I think curiosity is a good thing. I think that you should take everything with a bit of a grain of salt. Do your research. Again, I'll repeat that. Do your own research before committing to trying something like this. But I've had an overall positive experience. I do know people have had really bad experiences and they just never want to go to it.
Yeah.
And that's fine, right? To each their own. So do a bit of research, be prepared, you know.
I do like that it's available. Like, so I told you guys I tried microdosing LSD to be productive, and like actually the main reason was apparently it helps with like depressant as well, like being depressed. And like that's cool and all. Like I'm not like I'm not a fan of like medication or anything like that at all. So like for me it's like it's great that these things are available, but like if it will help you understand like that part of yourself that you're trying to like heal, I guess, or like know more, then yeah, do so. Like take it if it's able to help you like cope with it. But at the same time, like I feel like at the end of the day, like I talk about this with Jesse, like I don't think anything is really gonna help you, because if you're like I know so many people who are like depressed and like they get off their antidepressants because those medications like just make them like feel shittier eventually. Yeah. So like the moment they're off it, it's like they have to like deal with the whole cycle again. And I'm not an expert, but I'm just saying it's like from my own experience as well. Like it helped me for a little bit of a time.
Can I ask how often did you do it? What was your experience? Like, did you do it like as a routine? I did
it exactly what the recommended doses were.
And this is the microdosing LSD?
Yeah.
How often?
It was every day.
Okay.
Wow.
Because I have heard like you're supposed to not do it every day so your body doesn't rely on it.
Yeah.
So like your body kind of
because it can build
itself.
a tolerance. There can be diminishing returns on the effect of it.
Yeah.
Did you find it helped out at all, or?
What, like yes and no. Like I guess for me, like the biggest thing was like internally, like it helped at that time, like how I felt, how I feel, right? Because whatever my brain is thinking, it's gonna think it, right? And it's a matter of like me understanding that like whatever I am thinking doesn't define like who I am, right? It's kind of like with the same way, it's like just because like I'm thinking of killing you because I hate you and I don't do it. I mean,
sorry, Meghan.
We're the same way.
makes me not like, you know, makes me not a bad guy. And at the same time, if I and at the same time, it's like that was an odd example. But at the same time, it's like, for example, if everybody keeps thinking like they want to do like nice things and they never do it, does that really make them a good person? Like that's my perspective on it. It's like, yeah, I'm depressed. Like that's just how my brain's gonna think. Like I'll have those thoughts. I'll have like suicidal thoughts every now and then, but it's just one of those things that I know that like I shouldn't so like really like define me. You know, that's not who I am. And like I have you guys as my friends like to tell me that. So in terms of like the like taking it, yeah, sure. Like if it helps you like to get to that point, yeah, definitely do it. But I definitely like that's my only like takeaway or like negative thing on it, that
it's not a guarantee, and it's not
it's
like
just one of those things.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of, I don't know what strain you took or what you like specifically took, and I'm not an expert at all.
Yeah.
But there are also different strains that like help with specific things. Like I know LSD is more for productivity, more for a clear mind, whereas specific shroom blends are more for like depression and like helping with that. So maybe even, you know, like doing that research and figuring out what blend might be good for you.
And on top of that too, there's psilocybin, for example, therapies. We're talking about like doing this yourself, right? If you microdose on your own, you're following the instructions on a package, right? It might make you feel better, but are you necessarily being guided to addressing maybe the root of what the problem is? When I mentioned earlier, there's some research around people doing 1 or 2 time experiences with this. Those are like guided therapy sessions using psychoactive substances. And so you have someone there who's helping you address what is the root of your depression or anxiety while using these
Right.
substances, and when you're thinking of it that directly while under the influence of these substances, then you actually alleviate those problems
Yeah.
like a permanent.
I didn't even know that was
level.
a thing. That's
Yeah.
like, so yeah, like you got basically a therapist there that
Mhm.
knows their shit about psilocybins
That helps you
while
map it
you're
out.
not tripping, but microdosing.
While you are actually having a full
Macro-
experience,
Oh,
No,
you're
I think it's
you can
normally
have
While
you can
you
be
trip.
fully-
Sorry, not tripping.
yeah.
Tripping would be the incorrect word.
Yeah.
Well, tripping is it's the right word. I mean,
Yeah, you're on the
you're
trip,
having
I
a
guess
full
so.
dose.
Yeah.
Right. It isn't
Yeah.
just a microdose. Yeah.
Someone I know did that once, and like apparently he was just
Didn't go-
puking and shitting the
Oh.
whole time. Because
Wait.
you eat a lot, like it's like I want to say like up to like 5 grams.
Oh,
like
God.
it's a lot. Like to like.
Oh,
I mean,
okay,
maybe
I've
like
never done that
I'm
much.
I'm sure there's
They got
different
they got
ones.
scammed by some.
Yeah, this guy was just like.
That's not the right. That's
No,
not
this
right.
isn't the experience you want, and that's fair
I mean,
point
obviously
though.
different for everyone too,
Yeah.
and like different methods
Mhm.
for everyone.
And fair point is that it is still a substance.
Yeah.
You might have a different reaction to
Yeah.
it, and it might be an adverse reaction, not a great one, right? So that's possible too.
Yep.
Cabs, you mentioned that, and Ivan, you mentioned you kind of thought of shrooms when you first took it. You pointed at some friends having had like this like eye-opening experience. Cabs, you didn't think of it that way either. Now having done shrooms at least more than once, would you say that it has affected how you see things about yourself or how you see things about the world? For example, again, I talked about myself seeing the world differently, and that things aren't necessarily as serious as I maybe once thought they were. Things aren't as rigid as I thought they were. There's more to the world. Maybe we are more interconnected, or whatever feeling you might want to use to describe things. Do you feel like your perspective of you or the world has changed since trying these substances? Meghan as well. I just use them as an example because they talked about that before.
I don't think so, because when the times I've used shrooms, it's like it's been at like during a friend's trip
Mm-hmm.
where we're like all together and we're all just hanging out having fun. But
Making jokes.
Making jokes and
Yeah.
laughing the whole time. But I could see myself using it in the future and actually like maybe having discussions with other people, or trying to think more.
Or even with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like more having more serious.
Standing in the mirror.
yeah, just looking in the mirror. I don't know if I would want to stare at myself in the mirror though.
I was more like saying that like in inner monologue.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Like a
okay.
journal.
Not
Dude, like someone's narrating
Yeah.
in your head.
no, because so like what you were like what I was saying about what you were saying about being guided like for microdosing. So I
Mhm.
definitely felt like when I was like microdosing LSD, that was the main thing that it helped me with. It got me thinking about these things about my life and my thoughts. Right? It's not like the feeling of like feeling good, but like I don't know what it does chemically, but it's definitely one of those things that you want to avoid thinking about. Like, why is my perspective like this? Like, why do I want to do that?
Mm-hmm.
And it got me to the point of like, you know what? Maybe that's just how like my brain chemically like functions sometimes. And like my biggest thing was like, that's just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not who I am. That's just my brain.
So it kind of like started putting you on the right path
Yeah.
to look.
Yeah.
But Cap, sorry, you were saying about that for you it's
Yeah.
been just like fun, like giggles.
Yeah, it's just I never really took anything away from it other than that I was having a good time with my
Giggles.
friends. Like I
Yeah.
felt a lot closer with my friends too, especially after.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, like me and you are very similar in the sense, like we're just like very like go with the flow. Like
Right.
for me too, like I feel like I've always been just very easygoing, and like when I do shrooms, it's just like easier going. You know, like there's nothing.
Easy to easy, yes.
Yeah. But I think it has opened my eyes to like different ways you can enjoy being with your friends, and like you know, obviously you grow up drinking and like whatever, getting wasted, but sometimes even just going to the beach, taking a Scooby or whatever, and just
You know-
hanging out, laughing. Like I think it just opens your eyes to like different
Yeah.
experiences you can have.
Real
Actually-
quick, Megan said Scooby. Scooby, by the way, is like another
like
term
another-
for
it's like
these little
microdose-
capsules
yeah.
of shrooms. My first time trying shrooms was the actual mushroom. Disgusting taste.
Yeah,
These
man,
are a
yeah.
little bit easier. Fungal Friend is
Yeah.
like a Scooby.
Yeah.
Well, that reminds me of that time when you first did acid. No, which house was that where we were all stuck in the basement?
Oh,
I
it was
wasn't
horrible.
there for
I
that
don't
one.
Is that,
remember. It was somewhere
Peaches?
Peaches.
It was a Peaches
yeah,
trip.
Peaches.
So for me, like the biggest thing that I realized is how there's some people who were having a bad trip,
Mm.
and then there's some people who are having a good trip, and I felt like that could be a reflection of like people's like, I don't know, perception of like how life can be. Like what's the saying, half water.
Cup full, water
Cup half full or half empty. Okay. Half water.
Anyways, because I remember everybody was freaking out about showering, and then Megan comes out of the shower, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I just paused in front of the mirror," and I was just like, "I love me."
Oh man.
I was like, wow. I don't know why people say not to look in the mirror. I was
Yeah.
like, I feel fine.
I always say
I
that
was
too. Don't look in the
I was
mirror.
laughing so hard because I was like, I was like, every time I shower, I'm like, oh, I'm getting so clean. And then before, like, the person in front of me showering is fucking Troy. He's just like freaking out. He's like, the devil's in there. He's like, it's way too dark. And I'm like, I go in like, bro, chill. He's like, the shampoo feels weird. And then there's Megan. It's like, oh, it's fine.
I think that there's some truth to that, though. That I think goes to that point of set and setting, right? Whatever your mindset is when you are using these substances. And that could kind of like point to maybe, I don't know if danger is the right word, but the risk in trying a substance like this is if you aren't in the right mindset and you're taking these, it can kind of amplify those same feelings.
Right.
So those situations where I talked about like a therapy, right, where you're guided by someone who can actually take you through an experience like that and they help you with addressing those negative thoughts, maybe that's the kind of approach that person might want to take, because otherwise, like, this isn't a 15-minute thing, you know what I mean? Like, this is like 4 to 6 hours.
Is this
you know?
like it lasts a while too?
When we had tried it, it was a solid 4 hours of like the slope of the high. Yeah, it was nice.
I might see the rugby game on
Enjoy, man. And take these. I'm sorry, Cabs, earlier you were going to say something else. Do you remember what it was? You were about to mention something.
Oh, when Megan was talking about just like the activities with friends or whatever. I think it made me appreciate hanging out with my friends more. Like more of the...
because you remember everything. It's like, it's not blurry as when you like drink. You don't wake up the next day being like, what the hell happened last
night? It hits more.
You very much remember like, oh, we were laughing about this. Like, this was the experience we had. Which is like, it's nice.
It was a lot more memorable.
Yeah.
For sure.
When you're with your friends, I feel like I haven't had a bad time with it yet.
Yeah.
For me, when I think about like how it's affected myself, when I have done it with just 1 or 2 people, like a smaller group, you have more time to kind of sit and think, because there isn't just a joke firing off every 2 seconds, right?
Yeah, biggest difference there. Yeah.
When we do it with our big group of the 16 plus of us that are on these trips, like, there's rarely a moment to breathe.
No.
Yeah, you're just like cheeks hurting.
Yeah.
Actual facts.
As fun as that is, it's just fun, right? I think you can get a bit more introspective and like, okay, how am I really feeling when you're in a smaller group? Because you'll pause and you'll maybe look around. There'll be moments of silence, right? And that's when you're with your thoughts for a minute.
When I did take it at Pemberton, my friends didn't do any, so it was just me. And and I remember like having those moments about just like, because it's just me. So literally, like, I was walking around through Pemberton, like the festival, and like, I don't know, just getting to know myself. Like, that was the year. So I also moved to Edmonton, like, and I was living by, like, I like lost all of you guys. Like, I didn't have any friends there. And then even though I had friends like there, it's definitely the time where I felt like I got to know myself better. So when I was on that, when I was tripping at Pemby, it was literally so I think that was the closest thing to me entering that like whole like journey of like getting to know myself better. Because like, I don't ever think like ever even going to the mall since like I was grade 8, I would always like go with like either Carlo, like anybody. Yeah. Like
be with people.
Exactly. I would be with someone. And it was just like nice to like line up in the line by myself, walk to like the concert I want to see by myself. Like, I know I have friends there that I was with, but like, I don't know, at that time I didn't feel like I needed it. And it was sick.
A part of me is a little bit scared to ever do it by myself. Like, I wouldn't want to be the only one. If around other people, I think I'd be fine. But like by myself on shrooms, it'd kind of be like, you're forced to then think about yourself.
It was definitely scary because that place was huge. But to me, it's like I was scared for a bit. But the moment I saw the giant sunflower, I don't know what it was. The whole giant sunflower, I was just like,
can't be that bad.
Can't be that bad.
If it's okay, I want to take a moment here to talk a little bit more directly with you two, Meghan and Aivan, about microdosing. So I've talked about how there is a lot of research around large doses or full doses. of psychoactive substances, whether that be from psilocybin with mushrooms or whether that's LSD. There's even research around MDMA, which is considered a substance that's a psychedelic. Y'all both microdose or have microdose in Aivan's case. Meghan, you mentioned you still sometimes do microdose. What do you think about microdosing? Why do you do it? What do you think of it in the place of kind of psychoactive drugs? Like, where does that fall? Because it's not a full experience, right? It's not, you're not tripping with Kabir's word. You're not tripping out. So why did you step into it? What made you want to try that and bring it into your day-to-day lives?
I feel like when I started doing it because just people in my office also were microdosing.
That's awesome.
I work in marketing.
Stripping at the office.
Yeah. But I work in marketing, and I feel like, you know, you do need to be more creative sometimes if you're, you know, putting whatever graphics together, whatever it is. So yeah,
that's why her stuff always looks so crazy. Kidding.
So yeah, I decided to give it a try, and I liked it. Like, I found like you kind of just see things, it's just a bit more clarity. Yeah, it's not a huge difference. I find myself a bit more productive, a bit more focused. Yeah, it's like very slightly just a higher performing, I don't know, like your mind's
version of
performing
you.
a bit better. Yeah. Even the other week I was like, I have to do a huge clean of my house, so I just took a little microdose and just I literally had the best clean of my life. Like,
wow.
That's
I was
actually
so focused.
Yeah.
Huh.
For me, it was like it was weed. Like, I started with weed.
Microdosing weed?
No, like to like start implementing to be like productive or
Sure.
to chill and like do all that stuff. Because I was talking to someone about this. I think it was the guy. It was Kev. It was the guy that like helped. Maybe I shouldn't say his name.
Yeah.
Guys been name dropping everybody.
Kev.
A person, you know.
Yeah, someone I know, and I was telling how like so like before, when I used to study, like I would go to the coffee shop. I would always smoke a sativa because like I have like the biggest ADD or like ADHD. I don't know what it is. I just can't pay attention. I can't.
Glass half full.
I can't sit half water. I can't sit still for a while. So like anytime I smoke like sativa, I would like get hyper focused, especially with good music. So I would study, and then later on I realized that like whatever I studied, I actually don't remember because it was with weed.
Yeah.
So that's when my buddy was like, "Hey man, why don't you try this?" So that's why I tried LSD at first. It wasn't for like actually to help with like being like sad and stuff. It was just like to be productive. So that's what got me on it. I don't remember if it actually made me productive. I think it was just that I think now I've just gotten better at being productive. So that's kind of why I'm always like big on the thing that like it's good, like it'll help me get there. But I think it's like the actual change of like
It's not changing you.
it's not changing me. Yeah.
I think it might also like, I feel like in your work environment, you're always moving, you're always like, so it might be harder to feel it. Whereas when you're like, at least for me, like I'm sitting in a chair staring at a screen, so I can tell when I'm like, I lose my focus. Whereas like if you're always moving or
Well, no, it's like it's for when I program or like I study more like research, like I would take it, and then like it helped like make me sit down and like be hyper focused, because like I don't know, it was the only thing I could think of. I guess that was probably the biggest thing. It's there's so many thoughts going on in my head all the time that like it's nice to just like be into what I'm studying. But yeah, it started off with sativa.
But you're forgetting what you're learning.
Exactly. It was like it was actually one of those things where it gets stored in like my long-term memory bank. And now my
come up once.
Yeah, and then like we'll be talking. I'm like, wait, I think I've read that. And then it's
Right.
And I think that's the thing about microdosing though, is like you can really control what kind of experience you want. If you want to do really low doses where you don't really feel it too much, but maybe it's very slight, to like doing a bit higher where, you know, things are a bit brighter and maybe you're just seeing more clear. You can really control it, which is nice.
In terms of mood though, like not the whole like productivity or any of that stuff, like mood definitely like gets my mood up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like 100%.
Like just more positive in general kind of thing.
Like mellow. Just like chill. Like I'm like nothing is important.
Something, but in a good way. I know exactly what you're saying.
In a great way. Like I have all these tasks. have all these things to think of, but when I'm on it,
You're
it's
not
like
stressed.
I'm not stressed
Mhm.
over
Right.
it, like because I know it's like I'm doing it and I'm making my way
Mhm.
there.
downtown.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
walking
And I'm homebound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly the way I feel. So I've been taking I was telling you about it. I've been
Mhm.
taking a pre-workout, and I didn't know it has lion's mane in it,
Mm.
which is a
Right.
type of fungus,
Oh.
Mm.
and it has like cognitive aspects to it,
Like
where
boosters?
it, like boosts cognitive function,
Yeah.
and I don't know what exactly it
Mm.
does, but like I feel less brain fog,
Mm.
and my mood is
Oh, you've always
definitely
talked about the brain
Yeah,
fog.
brain fog.
because it's like a nootropic.
Yeah.
And
Oh
then-
yeah.
And then my like mood is definitely up when I'm taking it, like big time, I can tell.
Mm.
And like like what you were saying, like I'll kind of take a step back, and anything that I'm stressed on, I can think about it more clearly and like begin to focus on it, on it on like a way that
Yeah.
I can attack it properly.
Yeah, like
right?
work
Mm.
towards it without
Yes.
having stress over it. The anxiety goes away.
Yeah,
Right.
the
Yeah.
I've
anxiety
actually
about
heard
it
of
goes away.
The
like
tropics are
parents
dope.
giving lion's mane to kids.
I
when
thought
they
you were
grow
going to say
up.
shrooms. I'm like, whoa.
Well,
But
that-
lion's mane, like, because lion's mane, it doesn't get you high. There's no
Mhm.
active ingredients. I don't
Boo.
think is what it's called. But when you give it to your kid, like from what I hear, it just kind of helps them open up their brain as well as to like
Mm.
when they're learning languages and like
That's crazy.
just how to
That's really
understand
cool.
colors and everything.
What is lion's mane?
It's
fungus?
just like a
It's a-
different type
it's
of,
a mushroom.
but it's not an active like.
Yeah, it doesn't have the active hallucinogen.
Doesn't have psilocybin.
Yeah.
Psilocybin's the one that
Yeah.
makes you hallucinate. Yeah.
Where did you hear this from?
TikTok.
Back to our credibility as a podcast
Sources,
here.
TikTok.
Man.
Literally everybody nowadays. Sources.
I'm
TikTok.
worried because there's a lot of decent information coming out of TikTok these days.
Mhm.
Too
Mhm.
too decent.
And some of it's garbage. Some of it.
Some of it's great.
Some of it.
Not
Some
on
of
your
it's
mental.
solid. Never our TikToks.
Yeah.
Our TikToks are great.
Owen Wilson doing the.
Yeah, the Owen
I
Wilson
feel like
Harry Potter.
Megan would love that TikTok.
That one?
No,
The-
Owen Wilson.
Owen
There's
Wilson doing
Wilson
a
as
Voldemort impression.
Mm, wow.
Dude,
It's
we
a
gotta-
guy
I'll
doing a
show you.
Voldemort impression
Oh, I
as
love
Owen
that.
Wilson. Yeah,
That's
we'll
funny.
show it to you after
Okay.
this. It's hilarious.
Pull it up.
Yeah, we'll put it up on screen. Not
Yeah.
really. So Megan, it sounds like you use microdosing for like a productivity, creativity kind of standpoint. For you, I haven't used it as a way to kind of focus or see if it would help you with focusing and retaining information because you're using it while researching and studying.
Yeah.
I love that both of you have said those as examples because that is like two of the main things they talk about when you go and read anything about microdosing. One thing to acknowledge at least about microdosing is there isn't a ton of like science behind it yet. It's something that people are playing with and they're starting to research more and more. But there are some people that have done tests where it's like testing a placebo versus this, and there haven't been enough of those tests comparing a placebo to psilocybin. Because if you do a test like that at a microdose level, then if everybody's kind of reporting the same feelings, then it doesn't really have much of an effect. If you saw a big uptake in people reporting better feelings from the psilocybin compared to the placebo that they compare it with, then that'll be better experiments to run.
That's cool.
But it just hasn't been happening as often. It's a very simple kind of test, yeah, placebo test. But that
good.
hasn't been happening a lot yet.
Yeah.
But I think it will start to happen more and more. We talked earlier in the conversation today about there's like applications around mental health and dealing with some mental health disorders through treatment and therapy using psilocybin, for example. What do you guys think? And we've talked about it a little bit with things like lion's mane and using other natural things to kind of help your physical health. But what do you think about the idea of substances like this for mental health? Let's say down the road, psilocybin is completely legal. And people are now using it to treat themselves full on for things like anxiety, depression. You think that's good, bad,
I think
indifferent?
I'm
Yeah.
a big believer in it. Like I know I have a friend who was on antidepressants for a bit and she didn't want to be on a drug that, made you need to continue to be on a drug in order to feel
You
good.
develop a dependency there too.
Exactly. And so she went the microdose route and she felt so much better. She hasn't been on antidepressants since and it works for her. So I think if you can find a more natural way that works for you and you can like educate yourself, really like figure out the right steps to do it, and if it works, I think that's a great thing. It's natural.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
100%.
Because you talked about Aivan not liking medication.
Yeah.
Not a fan of that.
Yeah.
Why not?
or just the whole dependency thing.
Mm.
Like it's never a fix. I feel like we know, like I'm speaking like from people like we know and
Mhm.
like I know personally that like would be on these medication, and it doesn't really help them.
Mhm.
Like if you ask them,
It's
like,
not a long-term solution.
yeah, like if you ask them like, oh man, like how are you feeling? Like depressed.
Mm-hmm.
They talk more about it and like are you on medication? Like yeah, and it's like if like most of the time they'll just talk about like how their energy is shit,
Mm-hmm.
can't get proper sleep, or
Yeah, you've never talked to anyone and they've been like
pumped
on
over it.
antidepressants and been
Yo,
like,
I'm
I'm
stoked.
feeling sick with these
Yeah,
antidepressants.
yeah, I'm happy, yo.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's never the case. So like for me, it's like if like if microdosing, like what Meghan said, helps you get off it and like gets you like better, then
Mhm.
yeah, for sure. And I feel like that's like where my mind was in the very beginning in the first place. I'm still not like a whole firm believer of any form of any like microdosing or anything like that.
Mhm.
But I think if it helps you get to the point where you can think about it, then yeah, like
Mhm.
do so.
And I think that's the way you can look at it too. It's like, I think when all of us have done shrooms, we can all agree like it's opened up our minds. Like we can
Yeah.
see, just the bigger picture.
Mhm.
And I think, like anything, you can't just take an antidepressant and think it's going to fix you like that.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to change your mindset. You have to really work on it. And I think it's the same thing with microdosing shrooms. You can't just do it and assume if you still have a negative mindset, it's going to make it positive.
Mhm.
Right.
You have to like work on opening your mind up, trying to see the bigger. I don't know.
Yeah, the
Also,
psychological.
Also, I don't deal with that, so I can only
the
speak to it.
psychological
Mhm, mhm.
aspect of it is definitely like I think is the biggest thing.
Mhm.
Like if it can get you, if you can get the cogs turning, then
Mhm.
yeah, big move.
For people who might be interested in trying something like this from a standpoint of treating mental health disorders, do a bit of like research around it, right?
Yeah.
Don't jump
Mhm.
straight into it, and don't think that it is a one-stop shop and you're done, you're
Mhm.
cured, you're good to go,
Yeah.
right? There are some examples where people have had stories where supposedly it is like that, but I think it's something that needs to be studied more.
Hearing about this stuff though, and like all
Mhm.
that studies that you've mentioned and like how
Mhm.
your friends are reacting, that makes me really happy.
Mhm.
Because like I can
Mhm.
just think of like all the friends that could have used
Mhm.
it back then
Mhm.
and how
Mhm.
dope it would have been.
When you look in the States, people like AOC are like really lobbying for stuff like this to become at least allowed to be researched, right? Because of the legality around it, even some places won't do research, right? So I think it's important that it at least becomes an option,
Yeah.
right? We've talked a little bit before about you get things that are tools in your journey around self-discovery and mental health and all that kind of stuff. This could be a tool,
Yeah.
right? This could be a
Mhm.
really good tool.
Yeah.
If there's enough information around it to make people confident in trying it. Because we can all sit here and be like, yo, it's a fun time. I had a
Mhm.
great time on shrooms. But it'd be cool to be able to say like, oh, and it also had this very specific effect in my brain. And I know that it actually did this
Yeah.
thing, blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah,
Yeah.
based on research.
Yeah. Coming back to your question about
Mhm.
like if it changed like my perspective in life,
Mhm.
if they were actually able to prove that, that'd be
Mhm.
really cool. Because I definitely like can reflect on like it definitely like before I did shrooms, my
Mhm.
perspective of life wasn't as like what's the word introspective.
Introspective.
Yeah, it wasn't like that, but after shrooms and like the psychedelic stuff,
Mhm.
it's like definitely has.
Opened your mind.
Mm-hmm. Allowed you to look inside more, you
Yeah.
know?
Inside me, they look
Mhm.
inside you.
I agree with everything that we've said today. I think that there is something to be said about the ability to have an alternative, right, to stuff that's out there. I think in general, though, too, like if people have ever been thinking like, oh, maybe I want to try this from just a recreational standpoint, shit's pretty fun.
Why
Yeah.
not?
Why not?
I think this is like definitely the safest way to do it.
Yeah.
Microdosing.
Also,
yeah.
Also like, oh man, real shrooms. Phew.
Mm-hmm. And the actual ingredient is still real in there, but I know what you mean though, because the difference
It's daunting
between
to
something like
see it,
this,
to be
Yeah.
like, oh, like the head's stronger, or like,
yeah.
Yeah,
like,
what's
oh,
better,
don't go for that
stems
big
or head?
stem. Yeah.
when you get those devil-looking
duds.
shrooms,
They're all duds.
they're all duds.
They're all
But the difference with like actually eating the mushroom itself is that you can't necessarily measure that,
Mhm.
right? Like you have the weight of the mushroom, but how
That's
much of
why I
that
was
mushroom
like,
has
it was this
psilocybin in
many.
it.
This
Right.
many.
It was this many.
And that's actually something that in the research around microdosing, it's not an exact science with microdosing either, right? It's kind of hard to get like super precise, but someone like Fungal Friend, they do a good job of at least breaking down what's in that capsule that you're going to take, and
Great brand name,
helps
by
with
the
that.
way.
Yeah, really good brand name,
Good
Fungal
job,
Friend.
folks.
But yeah, I think it's a good alternative. I think that it would be really, really cool if down the line pharmaceuticals aren't the go-to for mental health disorders. I think it would be sweet if your doctor was like, yo, have you tried shrooms? Maybe give that a go.
Doctor's not going to say that. though.
Doctor's not going to say that
Yo.
probably
Paid
for a
not to say
long
that.
time.
Doctor goes,
Probably
"Yo,
for a long time.
try
But
some
this is, you
shrooms?"
joked about TikTok having good information on there. In the world of the internet, you don't have to go to your doctor for
True,
every
yeah.
possible
No.
recommendation. If there are things like this that are out there and you can get,
WebMD,
we're
baby.
not doctors, I should say, not a doctor.
You're a scientist, but
Fine
We
not
are
lines.
scientists, but not a doctor. Do your research. Look things up if you're interested in this kind of thing. Look it up. And if you wanted a good place to start, fungalfriend.com. Start there and look and see if you find anything. And
Kyle's Killer Shrooms.
Kyle's Killer Shrooms.com.
.com, not .ca.
It's a .com. It's a .com.
Oh.
Megan, Aivan, thank you both for coming on here and talking a little bit about shrooms and microdosing and all that. I personally am thinking I might give microdosing a go. At least just to try it once or twice, you know, see how I feel with it.
Why?
If it
You
can
have a
help
big day,
with
just see if it
Mm.
helps.
My reason for wanting to do it is that mood aspect to it. Elevate my mood a little bit and maybe just make me feel a little better. Get rid of some of the anxiety and
The brain
stress I
fog.
might feel at my job sometimes. You know, I kind of want to try
Mhm.
it,
Mm-hmm.
see how it goes. So yeah,
Sick stuff.
appreciate
Yeah.
it. Yeah, you know,
Brain fog.
brain fog gone. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you're not already, of course, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. If you liked this week's episode, like it. If you're listening to it, leave a rating. I don't think you can like individual episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Just
but
subscribe already.
Like,
just for
subscribe.
God's sake, just
Share
subscribe.
the
Follow him
Do
on
video.
something.
Instagram. Follow him on TikTok.
Thanks, guys. And we will see y'all next week with another episode. Peace.
Half water.
half water.
Sick, yo.
Nice.
You cannot sit still, eh?